Greetings from Tokyo, I'm Trip, and welcome to the Hammer of Wrath. This week, you and I are going to take our first steps into the world of 3D printing. So 3D printing, kind of intimidating, right? And when you think about it, pretty much a hobby all on its own. And when you combine that with tabletop wargaming, well, you sort of have this Venn diagram of obsessive, compulsive, creative, I don't know. Okay, listen, there's something you have to know about me right off the bat. If I'm gonna do something, I don't do it halfway. I kind of dive in head first and go a little overboard. I guess the modern term for this is hyperfixation. So that combined with my mild OCD, I guess you could call that OCD adjacent, makes for an interesting recipe. So I went a little crazy on Amazon and bought all of the things for this, plus a really snazzy apron. Is the apron necessary? Maybe, I guess. I mean, you don't want to mess with the resin, spill it on my clothes, but the important thing is that it looks great, right? I love old kit like this that's gone out of fashion. There's just something about it. I went to the pharmacist for the first time when I moved to Japan, and I was pleased as punch to discover the fact that the pharmacist still wears that old-timey smock with the fold over and the buttons down the side, and he looks like he stepped out of a Norman Rockwell painting. It's fantastic. The barber is the same way. You go to get a haircut, the barber is going to be wearing a smock like something out of a photograph from the 1940s. It's amazing. I digress. 3D printing. It can be scary. So let's do this together. We'll unbox it, follow the instructions for setup, go to the internet, find some amazing models, and then print them out. Let's get started. My items arrived from Amazon in 2 large boxes, because not only did I order the printer, but I also happened to order a wash and cure station. And this is something that's, well, pretty much essential if you're going to get into 3D printing. You can see that set up on the left there. And the printer is being set up on the right. Included in that were some rubber gloves, a metal spatula, a plastic spatula, and a small USB drive. Now, of course, no unboxing is complete without a little peel-off porn. I was tempted to add some berry white here, but didn't want to get the copyright strike. We set up the print plate, and within the menus, learned how to zero, which is a process in which you bring the print plate to the bottom, level it out, and then tighten it down to make sure that they're completely flush. We then added that, and we were ready to go. This is the complete setup that you can see here. Now all we have to do is head to the internet to find some prints. By trolling some various forums, I discovered someplace called Cults 3D, which is a massive online repository of literally tens of thousands of 3D printable items. I typed in scenic bases and immediately came up with over 4,500 search results. The most downloaded was this, the Wargaming base toppers. There are some really incredible sculpts in here, and the amazing thing about this is that they are absolutely free. I also found these, which I absolutely couldn't pass on. The last thing we're going to need from the internet is a slicing application. This is the application that speaks to the 3D printer, prepares the 3D files for printing, and, well, it slices them into the different layers. I've chosen Lychee Slicer because it was highly recommended, and most people consider it an excellent starter program as it's very beginner friendly. First thing you'll need to do is set up your printer profile. By opening the menu, you can find the manufacturer and type of your printer, and set that. And then once you've set that, you'll also need to set the profile for the resin that you're using. Once you've got that, you can bring your files in. Now this is what's called a pre-supported file. That is to say, when I open this file, it was already supported. In most cases, you need a raft, which is the large flat item along the bottom, which connects to the build plate, and supports. When we bring in our base here, you can see that this is an unsupported file, and that there are no supports to help it print. Once I scaled it properly to fit the top of the 40mm base, I then chose this option in order to add supports and a raft. And after a few seconds, Lychee Slicer generated this, auto-orienting the part to best fit the print bed and decrease print time, and added the supports to allow underprinting. We've brought in our second base, and again I've pressed the I'm feeling lucky button, but this time it hasn't exactly worked out the way we want. All the supports are attached to what would be the top surface, and we don't want that. So we've manually reoriented so the top is facing up, and heading back to the magic tool, making sure that auto orient is turned off, and press I'm feeling lucky. And in this case, it's created the raft and the supports, and it's given us exactly what we need. We fill our vat with resin, and loading the process files onto the USB stick, work our way through the menus to find the file, and press print, and the printer will let us know exactly how long that's going to take. When the print's done, we remove the build plate from the machine, let any excess resin run off, and then remove them from the build plate using a spatula. Here you get to see me fail in real time at my very first attempt, in which I try to pry the parts off against the grain of the build plate, permanently scarring it. It's fun to learn together, isn't it? You pop the pieces off, put them in the vat of isopropyl alcohol, turn on the wash station, and let it do its thing. 5 minutes later, you pull the parts out and allow them to dry on a paper towel. Once they're dry, break them free of their supports. The next step was to make sure that the parts were cured and fully hardened. We do this by exposing them to UV light, and fortunately, the wash and cure station transforms with a few simple steps. We set the timer and cure the parts. I used some super glue to apply them to the 40mm bases to prepare them for painting. I like to use old empty paint bottles and poster tack to create temporary handles. We set up our airbrush station and began with a primer coat of Vallejo Gray, and then a base coat of Cold Gray. On the statue base, I then sprayed white again, leaving the Cold Gray in the shadows. Using a mix of Lamian Medium and Drakenhof Nightshade 4:1, I created a wash. I then applied that wash liberally across both bases to bring out the recessed details. Once the wash was dry, I set about dry brushing. On the left, we used a Cold Gray to bring back out the highlights, and on the right, we used a white. Once the dry brushing was complete, I then proceeded to paint the details on each of the bases, which included empty magazines and shell casings. On the right, you can see I've applied a faux marble technique, which I'll go into greater detail on in another video. And with that, our bases were complete. And our two heroic characters look even more imposing on the battlefield with these incredible elevated bases. Not bad for our very first 3D print. Okay, so not nearly as difficult or scary as we thought it was going to be. Actually, pretty amazing. Just a cursory search of Cults 3D revealed not only the bases that we use today, but also things like custom shoulder pauldrons, chapter-specific iconography and relics, jump packs. The possibility for customization of your army once you get into 3D printing is incredible. So look forward to videos in the future where we explore this to greater detail. If you enjoyed the video, we'd appreciate your support. Please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. There's the brand new thanks button below the video if you want to throw us some cash, or you can check out our Patreon, linked in the description below. And lastly, you could always head to our t-shirt shop, that's bakingsodatees.com, where you're going to find one-of-a-kind, unique designs available nowhere else. Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you next time.